All right, listen, last time I did one of these webcam videos, which was literally like 2 days ago, I was struggling. I was not having a good time. And I was like, okay, listen, 7:55 p.m. For the last couple of days, I have been making a video at around this exact time. Let me just capture some of my thoughts because, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling a lot calmer. And listen, I want to also document the good parts of this process because I don't want it to just seem like L after L, which, is normal. If you're experiencing L's in your life, that's okay. But also there's little celebrations. So I was like, let me just talk for a little bit and celebrate something actually going right in my writing process. So if you missed the last couple of videos, update, sort of recap, I guess, on the last couple of weeks of my writing. Things have been really difficult. I have been struggling with writing for the first time, like in this way, for the first time in many years, and it kind of surprised me. It took the wind out of me because I just wasn't expecting this to happen. And I think it's those unexpected setbacks that obviously can be like the hardest to sort of handle. Now it's been a couple of days, not really, it's been 2 days, a couple hours basically. I am feeling better. I kind of want to talk to you about like the process of how I got to a point where I'm feeling better. I know that this might not last. I'm not gonna be negative about it and be like, it's gonna end so soon. I also know that, with good, there's sometimes bad, and I'm prepared for that. But I just kind of wanted to, I've never really talked about like, how do I get through moments like that are really difficult, since I've just been in like the struggle era, kind of talking about how I see a bit of lightness in the era. Now it's been a day, like 2 days actually at this point, where I've been feeling a lot better about my writing. So I can't really say if this is going to be a sustained thing, but I can say that these are a couple of things that have helped me. So yeah, I've been struggling. Now I'm not. So number one, what have I been doing to make myself feel better? To be honest, I've been taking a lot of time off from writing. That didn't necessarily make me feel better, but for some people, like if you're burned out, like obviously you're gonna need like a break. I wasn't necessarily burned out with writing. I was just terrified of writing. So the best thing actually for me that I did was I tried to create some consistency in my writing routine. Now I'm pretty lucky right now. I'm not doing anything. Just graduated, so I'm very lucky that I do have some time. So I was like, okay, let me just spend the next couple of days trying to figure out this routine again. I also tried to emulate a bit of a routine or something like that worked for me in the past, like something that excited me in the past. So I was waking up. I've been trying to. I'm not saying that I've been doing this perfectly. I've really only done this properly maybe once, and not even, but in my mind, I have an idea, like when I go to bed, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go out as early as I can outside, like where I am right now, and I'm going to try to write. And that helped, just sort of making a plan and then also trying to be consistent with writing. Now, I don't have a goal right now to like write every day. I actually was supposed to do write every day in May, and then I just couldn't do it. Like the writing just, it's not that the writing wasn't happening. I was just so afraid that like thinking about writing, even though like I love writing, was making me so anxious, which is a sad thing to experience because, this is something that I love to do. But genuinely, I just was like, okay, maybe a goal isn't the right thing to choose because, like a write everyday goal isn't the right thing to choose because I'm already kind of anxious. Kind of creating a bit of a routine did help. Now, like I said, didn't really hit that. Like I didn't really stick to it, but just the knowledge that that's what I wanted to do did help. Some other things is I edited a lot of work. Like I haven't been drafting technically, but I did manage to write nearly 1,000 words of this book. Like I added just through revisions, through like paragraphs and sentences. And now part of me was using that as a procrastination tool because what was kind of getting at me was like not being able to progress in the book. But it did help on those days where I was like, okay, I do want to like kind of be in the mood, but I'm like still too afraid to draft. So that made me feel a little bit better. I did use it as a crutch at some points though. With fair warning. Some other things that I did while in this time. I've been listening to a lot of music. So yesterday, actually, don't take me out. This is not an advice video. This is just me sharing. So I'm not saying like to actually do these things, by the way, just to clarify. These are just things that I've been doing so that because you guys a lot of you have been watching these videos. So just kind of following along. And this is kind of what's been helping. I basically found a song yesterday and I just listened to it literally all day, like on loop. And for me, that was useful because it gets me, like, when I start associating like a single song with like a scene or a chapter or something, it kind of, classical conditioning kind of gets you in the mood when you think about it. And for some reason, I hadn't thought of doing that because music was really important to me when I was writing 24 Karat Harrison. When I was back at university, I was listening to just on loop. It was a couple of songs in particular. I was listening to Nobody by Grace and Chance. I was listening to his recorded version and the live version, which are very, very different vibes because those were like Harrison. That's just him, the whole book. So I was listening to that. I was listening to Don't Ya, Pussycat Doll on loop. And I was listening to Sexy Back, Justin Timberlake, as well, because, I mean, relevant. And so it was basically those 3 songs on rotation. I was listening to Fade Into You, Mazzy Star too, kind of on loop as well. Having like a selection, like a small selection of songs is useful. So yesterday, I am in my Grace and Chance era. Like, sorry, I'm gonna never stop talking about it. Listen, I have been a Go Grayson fan for so long, so it's just apt that I fell back into this niche interest of mine that I, obsessed when I was like 11, 12. Anyways, back in it, I started listening to Overloved, which I think is one of his singles, and it's a great song. It ended up being like the theme of this chapter. I was so surprised because I've heard the song before. I just didn't really listen to the lyrics all that much, and I was like, oh my god, this is so perfect. So sometimes like everything happens for a reason. I don't know. I don't believe in divine intervention, but it was great that kind of ended up happening because it's just the theme of chapter 4, which is Know Christ. That was very helpful because, again, it's just a loop. You don't have to like, what's coming. It's kind of easier to tune things out. I've just been listening to, like, usually I would just put on like an album. So like for Body Back, I've been listening to a lot of Grace and Chance. Like it's the Grace and Chance novella basically. So I was listening to his album Palladium, but like it just felt like too much almost because I was so overwhelmed already, like with writing, and I was anxious, even though I'm very familiar with his music because I listened to that album like 5 times a day. And I've been doing so for many months. It just felt like too much. So I was like, okay, if I just listen to one thing, that will feel, that person is having a bump in time in their car. Okay, that'll feel a lot better. And so that was nice. It was also useful to interact with other people's art. So that would be my other thing. I have been doing a reread of the Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin for quite some time now. I think I talked about it in the Body Back video, like the All About My novel, kind of. It was like the I'm writing a new book video for Body Back. That book is really great. I mean, I read that when, oh gosh, I was so young when I first read that book. Maybe I was 16. And I liked it a lot. It's like a split point of view. I think there's like 4 points of view. But the reason why I have been doing a reread of it is because the vibes are kind of similar, at least in the first point of view section with the character Simon. The vibes are kind of similar. It's written in third person present tense. And if you have more third person present tense recommendations, let me know, because it's not a point of view that I see that often. Like, it's not that it's uncommon. It's just like, it's not that one that I see all the time. Third person present tense is the point of view that I've been writing quite exclusively since 2019. Like, since I started writing Mothwork, that was the first thing basically that I wrote in third person present tense. And it's the Harrison point of view now. Like, if I'm writing with him, it's going to be in third person present. Don't ask me to write that man in first person present tense. Oh my god. Imagine, just in general though, first person Harrison would be so bad. Oh god. There's actually some bits in some of the excerpts that I'm gonna read. Yeah, I'm gonna read some excerpts where you do get a little bit of first person, because you'll see. So it's like, I don't want to be that close to you. It's okay, stay away. You got germs. So I was talking about the Immortalists. I've been rereading that. I have a physical copy of the book, but I also got the audiobook like through my library. So I was listening to some of the audiobook as well, and I found that was useful to like engage in other art that was kind of similar in terms of like vibe. Like, I think Chloe Benjamin and my writing, I don't want to like, Chloe Benjamin's a great writer. I'm not about to compare myself to Chloe Benjamin, but I think we have like similar-ish writing styles. It also helps remind me like that art exists at some point, like that somebody else had to go through the creation process, and I'm sure also was like struggling with something. So I've been starting each writing session by just rereading what I last wrote. I do that a lot when I'm not feeling like I can just spring back into things, tweaking as I go, but also like limiting how much I do, because I have been finding I'm falling into old habits where I'm like, this is so bad. It's like, girl, so yesterday I was like, you know what? Like, I might feel that way right now. I'm just gonna give it a couple of weeks. I'll come back and be like, this is totally fine. And it's true. That advice always works for me. So that's another thing that I have been doing. I've been really like deeply empathizing with my narrator too. I think that has been helpful. I mean, I kind of always do with my characters. Funnily, characterization isn't one of my strongest things. Like, I might write characters well. I don't know. I guess I've heard from other people that I'm good at characterization. But characterization isn't one of the things that I'm very good at, because I'm very uncomfortable in other people's hands. Like, I don't really understand people. I just like write them, and whatever happens, happens. And apparently that works. I've been finding it useful to actually think quite deeply about my narrator. And I always think very nice things. That sounded like I was supposed to be genuine, but it sounded sarcastic. About Harrison, I do genuinely think about him like in a very fond way, because, you know, he's followed me through a lot of projects. But I have been feeling like connecting with him like on another level. I think the more, like, because Body Back, I've mentioned this in a video before, is as much about me as it is about Harrison. I think what's been helping me while I'm going through this like really difficult chapter, this really difficult theme, like understanding this difficult moment, is relating to what this character is going through, finding me within the experiences. And these videos have actually been helping me because I've been talking through it, and then I can identify, oh, this is the Rachel emotion that's like really infused in this chapter. And I find that that's helpful for like highly emotional chapters. I think in my writing about trauma video, I had been writing that whole section about like Reeve, and she was undergoing this, like, it was like a 20,000 word escapade into like this quite like traumatic section of Seventh Virtue for Reeve. And I talked about in that video like how I approached writing trauma or whatever. But for that too, like pulling on my experiences and the relationship I had that wasn't, you know, that informed how I wrote this. That was helpful, because it's not like I'm like writing about me, but it helped me kind of understand genuinely like where the character is at, and also I'm feeling in the narrative, like myself feeling that narrative helped me kind of more clearly like picture what was actually happening to this character, rather than me being like, okay, well, Harrison's like having a mental breakdown, like TLDR, he's having a mental breakdown, which is what's happening in chapter 4. It's a very subtle mental breakdown, but it's a mental breakdown nonetheless. Instead of just saying that, I could understand and like, okay, he's feeling this way because he feels like his life is leaving him behind, because he feels like everybody's moving on without him, because he feels directionless, because he feels very young at 21 and also very old. And I also feel all those things. He feels like he's running out of time. I mean, we talked about this in the last video. That is Rachel's Achilles heel, fearing running out of time. So that kind of stuff was helping a lot. Yeah, I think I've also tried to be gentler. Something that I was talking about in the last video is I was getting really frustrated that I would say like, hey, I'm gonna get up really early and then I'm gonna go out, like I was saying earlier, I'm gonna write all day. And I was getting frustrated with myself because it wasn't happening. And I was like, Rachel, Jesus, just stop procrastinating. And I tried today really to just be like, okay, because the same thing happened to me today. I said that I would write really early and I didn't start until like an hour ago, and here I am filming another thing in the middle of it. What I decided to tell myself was, it's okay. Like, listen, like, so I like being creative. I'm a creative person, and sometimes it's actually useful for the brain, at least for my brain, to like work on something adjacently creative, and that kind of helps the actual writing itself. So I took a bit of like a 5-hour break accidentally while writing today to do other things. I learned a song on guitar. I filmed like a really bougie guitar video. I was doing a lot of guitars, to be honest. And I went on a walk and stuff like that. That space is useful. The book is there. The book's going to come back. I think learning to not rush into things. So it was nice to do other things that are also creative. So you can do that too. I don't know, like if you have other creative hobbies that aren't necessarily writing. Sometimes writing all day can be a wonderful experience, and then sometimes it can be an unrealistic experience and expectation. Like what was happening to me, I think it's just becoming unrealistic. Clearly, I don't want to write from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or if I do, it's just not feasible for me right now. Another thing that I've been doing is I've been going back into the draft, and I've been finding moments where I can flesh out psychology. I'm going to read a section that I actually fleshed out quite a bit. That's been helpful because I don't have to like pause while I'm drafting and like really delve into like a psychological tangent. I can kind of just continue through the flow of the scene, or if I'm not really like, if I'm tired or something, I'm not going to come up with the most philosophically beautiful things in the entire world. So going back and doing it has been useful, and it also kind of reconnects me with kind of where Harrison is at. So let's read some of it, because I did write something that I did quite like. Let me find. And apparently I've been hearing feedback that you guys like hearing my writing. There is this scene. So the scene context is, you know, if you missed the last video, Harrison in chapter 3 went really party mode to like forget about his ex. That didn't really end up well for him. So he's landed back up on the doorstep of the guy that he's seeing, and the guy he's seeing is named Jeremiah, and Jeremiah is very nice. Like, he's a very nice person. Like, he's so nice. I had this idea of putting him into seventh virtue, but I'm like, the only reason why like I don't want to is because like he's very nice and I don't want to ruin his life. But maybe I do, because I'm already ruining his life enough in these books. Anyways, so him and Harrison kind of have like a little bit of an argument at the beginning of this chapter, because Harrison stole one of Jeremiah's friend's bikes. To be fair, the friend deserved it. Kind of put Jeremiah in an awkward position, like, understandably. You shouldn't steal other people's mopeds, Harrison. Jeremiah was very nice and graceful about the situation, and you know, he feels bad for Harrison. He understands Harrison's struggling, so he's like, okay, let's like put this behind us, let's go out for lunch. And they go back to this restaurant, and you can actually read the scene that this is based off of. I'll link the video actually in the description if I remember, but it's from the real reason you're a bad writer video. That was when I went through one of the chapters in Mothwork. My dog is being loud, sorry. That's Winston. Video where I went through a chapter of Mothwork, and I annotated it, and I pointed out all the good things, all the things I liked, which I encourage all of you to do with your own writing. Like, go annotate it, find the things, like the techniques that you like and the sentences you like. And that scene was Jeremiah and Harrison, because Jeremiah is a character from Mothwork. Oh my god, I didn't even explain what the hell Body Back is. Body Back, if I even mentioned that that's the title, is a novella I'm working on. And it comes after a novel called Mothwork. So in Mothwork, Jeremiah and Harrison go to a restaurant, and they've met like the night before, because Jeremiah works at a hotel. And he's working the night shift when Harrison comes in, and he can tell that like Harrison maybe needs a friend. And they also seem to like be mutually like attracted to each other. They're like, they think each other is cute, which is true. They're both cute. So they end up kind of going to lunch, because Jeremiah is like, let's go. There's this place, there's this Chinese restaurant. One of his friends works there. He has coupons. This is like his spot. So he brings Harrison there. And I wanted to repeat that scene, but you know, in Mothwork, that scene's really quite nice. Like, Harrison's still struggling in that scene. Go watch the video to understand what's happening in that scene. But because he's thinking about Loden, who is kind of his boyfriend, but not actually. Anyway, they're like kind of in the middle of a breakup, but like not actually. Anyway, it's complicated. Just go watch the video. You know, there's still some tension. It's also a really good thing, because Harrison's getting to experience what it's like to be like a normal 21-year-old, which he hasn't experienced so far in his life, because he's very focused on being a caretaker for somebody else and like living somebody else's life for them rather than like his own. In contrast, in Body Back, I wanted to do the same scene but sad. I wanted it to feel like a goodbye. There's a line somewhere about like how it feels like a eulogy. Winston, sir, you're breaking my vibe. My bulldog is being disruptive and running around the deck. So right now it's kind of a little awkward between Harrison and Jeremiah. Jeremiah's still trying to like help them feel better. You know, they've gone to their first argument. They're not actually like an item. They're not official or anything, but you know, they still care about each other, and they're currently seeing each other. Kind of about Reeve, which is also, again, following the structure of that last scene. Harrison also goes off in his mind in Mothwork and thinks about Reeve. So I was like, let me put one of those here. It's going to rain tomorrow, at least according to the mounted bubble TV on the restaurant's far north side. Is grainy pictures suddenly the most pressing thing in this establishment? A headline about a collision on I-80, an update on Katrina, a mass power outage in LA. Behind the screen is a window that leads to the kitchen, and Bee's face flashes through it every few minutes. He hasn't even thought of calling Reeve since the last time he'd been in this restaurant, but he could now. Find her in the yellow pages, invite her to dinner with him and Sue's. Would she like that? Perhaps she's the same woman who'd sat with him that sunny morning in Oregon, her legs stretched out in front of his and Ronan's tent. There was something both blunt and guarded about her then. She wasn't a woman, not a sister, not a friend, but a threat. There's the other Reeve section in the other video too, which kind of is, this is a direct reference to that. I also had this like a bit of an Easter egg, invite her to dinner with him and Sue's, which would she like that? He does do that. So I thought like, oh, let me like also foreshadow something for the next book, because there's a second book in this series. It's called Feeding Habits. I already wrote that many years ago. Many of you probably already know about that. And so that was kind of just some foreshadowing for what does happen in Feeding Habits. This is a continuation of that. I guess I'm just reading the whole scene, well, a lot of it, because I just wanted to share something that comes after this, and it's good to have the context. So this is just this is a continuation. Jeremiah speaks first. I'm thinking of heading east in the winter, Maryland. My grandma turns 80. Harrison turns to Jeremiah abruptly, his throat dry. What? For a couple months maybe. Might meet Rory in Hanoi in the spring. He's thinking of staying there through the new year. What about Greta? Harrison asks, which is the name of the hotel he works at. When the real question he should be asking is, what about me? It takes him a moment to even register he's gaping. I'll find something else to do, dog walking, printmaking. I'm thinking of getting certified in hypnotherapy. So this is like a moment where Jeremiah's like, these are my future plans. And Harrison's like, oh shit, you have a future and you have plans? It panics him a little bit, like it takes him a moment to even register he's gaping. He's like, what? Like you're moving on without me? Well, so he thinks. Here's this bit of Jeremiah being a real sweetheart. So this is the paragraph that leads up to the sweetheart moment, warning for like suicide ideation. Harrison's ears ring. He looks to the window like it's an out, when in reality, all that's out there are a couple fir trees and a main road. An 18-wheeler whizzes by every few minutes. As Jeremiah talks about a paper he needs to turn in on Tuesday, Harrison imagines what those drivers are doing, thinking. There are such cute kids walking outside right now because the weather's really nice in Toronto today. As Jeremiah talks about a paper he needs to turn in on Tuesday, Harrison imagines what those drivers are doing, thinking. One considering his plans to shoot darts with his brother at a dive bar. Another answering a call from his wife to bring home a stick of butter. Someone else considering flooring the pedal, letting go of the wheel. You could come with me, you know. Harrison looks up and finds Jeremiah's eyes honeyed in a strand of sun. The realization is obvious. He's an ember of a man, an effervescent, sacred light. He's always been. Come with you? Maryland, Hanoi, dog walking, wherever we want to go. So cute, Jeremiah. Why are you so nice? He's like, Jeremiah's like, these are my plans. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do whatever. He doesn't really have like solid plans, but he's being like early 20s about it. He's like, I'm just gonna do whatever comes to me. He's kind of like a chill guy in that way. And so Harrison's like, oh, like you're just gonna leave me here, I guess. And then he's like, actually, come with me, which is very nice. He doesn't have to do that, especially considering everything Harrison's done up until this moment. Does not deserve this kindness. But something else about this chapter that I kind of like is Harrison mutes his feelings a lot, like on purpose. Like he thinks about all the things he could say to Jeremiah. Like at one point he's like, oh, like he should apologize in narrative, and then he just ends up being like, hey man, can I use your shower? Rude. So here's one of those moments too where Jeremiah like takes his hand and Harrison like yanks away because he starts daydreaming about the ex, because that's a normal thing to do. Harrison's hands shake. He can't look at Jeremiah again, is afraid any more understanding will rive him right here. He'd become more of a nuisance than he already is if that was the case. Blood on the ground, on the walls, tiger. I think I have a headache. Jeremiah exhales but grabs his wallet regardless. From a zippered pocket, he pulls out a Tylenol. You need to eat something, he says, waving over Bu before Harrison can tell him not to. He can tell him to please use this as an out, to please grab his things and beeline to the door and hitch a ride to somewhere gentler than Las Vegas, to someone more reliable. Jeremiah, just go, he could say. Jeremiah, it's not too late for you. Jeremiah, adopt a dog who'll love you. Jeremiah, change your locks. Jeremiah, learn how to refinish a deck this summer. Jeremiah, pick honeysuckle by the fistfuls. Jeremiah, laugh because it's over and never cry again. Jeremiah, the earth is vast. Please remember that. There's still so much time to run. And the last excerpt, which builds off of the previous one, which, I mean, this is almost the entire scene, which is so funny, but I'm celebrating, okay? This is a win. If the next video is me being like, guys, writing is so bad, at least we have now. In a few months, Jeremiah won't be the same person he is today. Whether he ends up out east or in an art class painting a la prima, he'll change. He'll make new friends in Baltimore, dance with them in Fells Point, photograph tree swallows together at Herring Run, kiss one of them in the state for a scorching sun. And that'll be good for him. Harrison's no Christ, no God. He'll never be omnipotent. Yet, he is certain of this. To interject in the middle of this excerpt is obvious. This chapter is called No Christ, right? But Harrison's No Christ is a sentence that has been repeated throughout Body Back. But here it is, the drop title basically here. Jeremiah, he interrupts. One day, Jeremiah will drive a silver birch Cadillac alone, inhale for 3 seconds as the wind rustles his hair. That child screaming, yes, I'm gonna pretend that they're screaming in joy for my writing. He'll keep on the road for hours, count the red SUVs on the way, stop for lunch at a taco stand, buy Tari hot coffees from every gas station he passes. He'll be an even better man. And Harrison? In a year, he could apprentice for a sculptor, make minimum wage flipping burgers on the weekends, memorize the Dewey Decimal System for fun. Maybe he'll be like Rory, backpack somewhere no one knows him, somewhere with mountain ranges he doesn't recognize, somewhere with suburbs and lawns, somewhere no one can find him ever again. But he's here now, Jeremiah looking at him like he's simultaneously a glass mid-fall and a glass worth piecing back together with school glue and some patience. Jeremiah, look at me a little longer, he could say. Jeremiah, I can't remember the sound of my own name. Jeremiah, your birdsong in the winter, the first glimpse of sunrise. Jeremiah, I'm so sorry. Jeremiah, you're young enough to forget all of this soon. Jeremiah, be tender while you can. Jeremiah, please go gently. Jeremiah, I'm yours. I'm sorry? Jeremiah, what? I love that moment. Thank you, Grace and Chance. Listen to Yours by Grace and Chance, because that, I was like, oh, that's a perfect thing for him to say. This whole book is, you know, in collaboration. He's not aware, Grayson is not aware, but it's in collaboration with his music. A couple of Easter eggs here. In a year he could apprentice for a sculptor is a reference to Seventh Virtue. I'm just like Easter egging my own writing, because in Seventh Virtue, Harrison works as an apprentice for a sculptor, and he keeps getting fired as an apprentice for a sculptor, which is how the whole book starts. I think the Dewey Decimal System thing, like memorizing it, I think that is actually also in Seventh Virtue too, maybe, I don't know. And then the Jeremiah, please go gently, that is a reference to a line, again, that's like, please go gently, like earlier in the book, like much, much earlier. It's like early chapter 3, I think, but like chapter 3 was very long, so it was many thousands of words ago, and Harrison's talking about, let me see if I can find the original, and it's really supposed to signify like when you leave gently, you know. So it's a little bit of a spicy blasphemous momentito, BT dubs. From this angle, bowed against another man's body, he could look like a believer in supplication. Please go gently, please spare my life. That's the line that he repeats here, and he's actually with Jeremiah at that moment, so now we're repeating it here. It's like a bookend. This is supposed to feel like the end of something, this chapter, because it is the end of something. They never see each other again after this point, which is so sad, because Jeremiah is such a nice dude, and Harrison's like, nah, I'll stick with Birdman Lonan, which I mean is a choice. Is a choice to make. That's the celebration. Rachel is figuring it out slowly. Now I'm almost done No Christ. No Christ is going to go back to partying mode, which is not great for Harrison. Fun for me though. Then he's gonna be reckless, ruin a great relationship. What's on his to-do list? Ruin the best relationship I've ever had, not address my emotions and instead cover them up through means that I should not engage in. Worry my mother, etc., etc. Those are so many things on his list. But yeah, that's the update for me. Thank you for watching, and I will continue to, maybe if I want to, make little videos like this. But otherwise, I'm not sure when I will actually be back to make like actual videos. Thanks for sitting with me as the sun went down. Now it's like dusky vibes. Not even dusky. It's literally not even blue hour yet. So anyway, I'll be out here for a while, and I'm just gonna continue to write, because it's gonna be a cute scene. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be like setting you up for success, but really, it's setting you up for failure. Failure thrown on the ground.